I just want to do a little review before we continue on for today. I got some of your work during the week and what everybody was doing, and I think everybody got it. They knew what they, creating the palette, creating the grid, and working from there. Some were better than others, of course, because of experience level. But the whole idea behind going through that is that these are your tools to creating a better painting. Anybody can sit down with a palette and some paint and some brushes and just go at it. But if you have an understanding of the reason why, like one color versus another, one color surrounding another, that's the reason for the grid. I want you to, when you're painting, you should be able to take that out. Let's see, Joanne, with your painting, did you refer back to your grid when you were working with that? Why not? Oh, I'm disappointed to hear that. Okay.
Karen, my grid is not pretty like yours. Mine is kind of muddy.
Who said that?
Camille.
Camille, yeah, you got to work on your grids more. You got to work on your grid because you're not really taking the time. It's a time-consuming thing. It's like doing another painting, but it's worthwhile in the end. You have to just put that in your mind and say, and I noticed you were trying to have everything very straight, with lines and a ruler. That's not necessary. Just take a brush and put those bands down and let that be kind of free. There's Joanne. She has her grid. Okay.
You said, why didn't I use it when I was doing the painting? I was so focused on doing my background that I totally forgot about the grid.
Okay. Well, you were obviously influenced by it because in the final painting, it came through. Now, do you have the final painting? There it is. Now, I want everybody to notice this background because when Joanne sent me her image, I said, oh, this one cries out for some kind of a textured background. Now, how do you get that, Joanne?
Oh, you're asking me?
Well, I'm asking you because you went through a little bit of a process.
I did. Well, first of all, I used masking fluid to mask out all the flowers and the leaves and these like funny little lines and some of the stones.
Mm,
and then I,
well, that's your fault.
From the grid, I knew I had several shades of brown and dark blue and well, almost a black. So what I did is I got some tin foil and crumpled it up. I don't have any here. Oh wait, I do have some in the garbage. So I got some tin foil and crumpled it up. And you can see the remains actually here of some of the paint I put on. And then just went like this. Boom, 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 boom. All over the paper. Did it, let it dry, then it did a different color, let it dry, did a different color. And truthfully, I really like how it came out. That's why I couldn't.
Yeah, and you should like it because that's when a technique really became involved in the painting. I'm going to go over all the different kinds of techniques today. And what you have to do is when you are doing a painting, like we're going to be talking about that cherry tree, you have to say, is there some kind of a technique that I can bring to this painting that will enhance it, that will embellish it, that will make it a better painting, that will really work? Okay.
Can I ask a question? This is Diane, iPad 2.
Okay, Diane, go ahead.
So when you do this grid, I mean, I'm totally new to this, and it seems to me a lot of people have a lot of experience, and I don't.
So the grid part is really elementary, but go ahead.
So, like, do you bring your color all the way through each line, right?
That's correct. And the reason you do that is because the idea of being able to see one color over another will tell you what happens when you mix two colors together. If you brought yellow over green or blue over red, what would happen when they overlapped? Blue over red would give you kind of a violet.
Purple.
And yeah, and yellow over green will give you a yellow green. I'm hoping that when you create these grids, that in the end, it will show you, like I did a grid for the, let's see, for the cherry tree. Here it is. Well, here's the grid for the cherry tree. This is an example, and here's the palette for the cherry tree. So I looked and I saw there were many greens, you know, blue sky, brown in the trunk, you know, and all of these colors, believe it or not, this whole warm set of colors are in the tree. They're in the tree. So what this told me though is, you see what happens when this pink band went over this blue band. You see this?
Right. It didn't seem like when I went over some of the colors that anything, it just seemed like it was one color on top of another and not really a change.
Well, when it dries, and if it's done correctly, this is what happens.
And
What
then
are
those
you?
colors, those colors in between, those sweet, I think you call them sweet spots?
Oh, jewel, yeah, the little jewel spots.
Jewels.
Yeah.
How do you pick those?
Yeah, that's what I
You
was
pick
my
those,
question.
you pick those, like when you go shopping and you pick a dress, or you pick a piece of furniture, the color of something. What appeals to you? And you don't want to put this green next to this. And why is that?
It will blend in.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. So you put the green from this band anywhere except there. So that's what you do in every case. You go down the columns and you say which colors are going to be best and surrounded by other colors from the palette.
Okay.
Okay? And
Karen,
once you
I have
do
a
it-
question.
Who does?
Sue,
Okay.
so with some of mine, I see the colors showing through and others I don't. Does that mean I had too much pigment?
Well, there are some watercolors that are transparent, and there are
Okay.
some watercolors that are more opaque. And that probably has something to do with that. When you buy them, they're often, there's often something on the tube or if they're in a pan, they're probably all transparent unless you buy opaque watercolors. But that's what happens.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All righty? Okay.
Karen,
now I'd like to-
Karen, it's Marie Claire.
Yes, where are you, dear?
I don't have my photo up. It just says my name. My question is about those jewel spots.
Yes.
You have spots to the left and the right of each color block.
Yes.
Now,
Well, they're all around, actually.
correct.
See?
So are those jewel spots, I don't know which of the vertical lines, the vertical colors, those jewel spots refer to. Because
It
you've got two spots next to two different stripes.
Yes, well, it has to relate to everything around it, okay?
Okay.
So if like, see, for instance, the green, I'll use the green again. When I put it here, I looked at what was to the right, what was to the left, what was above, and what was below. So that's what you have to consider. Everything that is surrounding the jewel spot. The one above it, you see all those colors that surround it?
Right.
That's the consideration each time.
Okay. So
Everything that's around it.
got it. And then when you positioned your vertical stripes, what order, I mean, what was your thinking in terms of which ones you chose? They don't follow the same order as on the little swipes on the extreme left.
No, what I did was I think I started with maybe colors that I liked next to each other. Like this was a green, then I put down, you know, I looked over here and I kept track because you can see that they're numbered or lettered.
Right.
So first went the green, then went the peach, then went the blue. You know, I didn't put two greens together.
Right.
And I didn't put blue, you know, I didn't put two light colors together.
Right.
Light, not, yeah, L-I-K-E.
Yeah. So you chose what colors you liked to position.
Exactly.
Next to one
And that's what the grid is about. It starts your head thinking, even subconsciously, about color theory. This is really color theory. And after you become a more experienced painter along the way, you don't need a grid. Although I'll tell you, I make them many times just to get myself into the painting. I prepare myself almost every time.
Okay.
So-
Thank you.
But
Alrighty.
Karen,
Okay.
you select the colors from the painting,
Oh yes, always from the image.
always from the image.
Yes.
You see many colors. I don't see those many colors.
Well, who's speaking?
This is Camille.
Oh, Camille. Well, I'll tell you, it's not just about the colors, it's about the tones of the colors. Say you have a green and you might have a light, a dark, a medium. You might have all different tones from that one color. So that becomes part of your palette. The actual tones, you know that grayscale that I asked you to do where you dipped the brush in and it went from solid to the next and the next and it got lighter and lighter?
Yes.
Well, that's what happens if you don't see that many colors in an image. Then you have to look deeper within the colors that you do see and you put tints or tones of those colors.
Okay, so the palette that you have for this, for the tree, I have it here. Okay.
Yes.
You saw these colors?
I saw all of these. Everything
All of-
that's everything
Yes,
that's here.
those colors.
Yes, I did.
Is that the same? I don't know. This is the palette for the cherry tree.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the colors you saw and you selected them and you put them where they would fit best.
Yes, yes. I put them in a logical order that would work, you know, one next to the other, next to the other. You know, I don't want to put all the greens together. I didn't want to put all, you know, light colors together.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Now, here's the image of the tree, just to talk about this for a minute. And when you say, oh, you didn't see a lot of colors in there. Well, if you look here, okay, how many do we actually see? There's a blue, there's a lighter blue, there's some kind of an orangey color in there. There's green in the leaves. There's a couple of different pinks. There's green in this grass. There's dark green in the shadow. This piece of evergreen is another green. It's kind of like it has olive tones and some yellow. You have to look deep into your image, okay? So that's what develops the palette. Okay, I want to move on from that. All righty. Let's talk about some techniques now.
Karen, before
And
you
please
go,
have pencil and paper
Can I-
because there's a lot of information here. And when this class is over, since it's an hour, you may go back and I'll tell you, no matter what class I take and with whoever I take it with, it can be a very experienced group. It can be not so. I always have a notebook and I always write things down because the recall is, you know, you want to be able to walk away from that and maybe hours later or days later, you want to be able to pick it up. Okay. You know,
Karen,
yes.
can I ask you one question before you go on? Because I'm still unclear on
Okay.
the jewel thing. What is the purpose of the jewel? Because you said contrasting colors. First you had said another word, and I'm still not clear about what I did is I mixed colors. I still don't understand exactly the purpose of the jewels and what we need to do on the jewels.
The purpose of the spots, the jewel spots within the grid, is to take something from here, something from your original palette, bring it into this grid.
Not mixed, just plain, the way it is in the palette?
That's correct.
Oh.
Now, if you find yourself mixing these colors and coming up with something cool and interesting, well, it's not foreign to what you're doing. It's related.
Okay, because that's what I thought was the purpose of making a new color.
It's okay to do that, but it's better to do it when you have something that's more pure.
Okay.
But I'm not saying it can't be done. In fact, I have done it.
But each time I have to mix it again and again. I don't get enough paint to be able to make a whole strip like that. And then,
Just for the spots.
Well, you need to work with little cups like this. When you're doing the stripes,
yeah.
the bands,
Mhm.
you need to work with something like this or a muffin tin someone had suggested, which was very good.
And how do you get enough paint into that muffin tin?
You just take paint from wherever, if you're working off, and you take paint and water and paint and water.
Okay.
until you get enough.
Try again. Yeah.
All right, it takes practice, you know, and then when you get it, you'll say, oh, I can judge by how much is in this cup or how much is in the pan. I can judge it.
Well, here's the question. Am I better off getting these kind of little tubes that say watercolors? These are very old. I think they must be at least 70 years old. But
if they work, it doesn't matter how old they are.
okay, I don't know.
Just mix them with water.
Okay, all right, I'll try.
Okay, all right, let's
Do you choose, I have one question. Do you choose whichever colors you want to put diagonal and horizontal? You just do that out of your, whatever ones you have, you choose whichever ones you want, right?
Yes, whatever feels good to you, what is pleasing to your eye. And Carla, you have a good color eye, so I would go for it. Okay, all right, let's talk about techniques now. And this is a list that I want to give you, and I actually want to show you. Oh, one thing before we move to that, you see this chart? Years and years ago, as I was beginning like you are, or adding to what I was doing, I started to buy paints by the tube. So I made myself this chart, because when you go into the store, you look at a tube, you look at the chart on the wall, it's never what it looks like when it's water and paint on a piece of paper. It just never looks the same. So when I get it home, I mix it with, I mix it as a watercolor color, and I add it to here. So as I'm painting, if I want a certain color, I dig out my chart. It's not so beautiful anymore. It's got a couple drips on it, but I'll tell you, I would flip if I lost this. So if you're thinking about going forward with watercolor painting and you're going to buy tube paints or even pan paints, this is what they have to look like on a piece of paper, not what they look like in the tin or in the tube. Okay? Okay. Now, let's talk about technique. Oh, did everybody get that information that I sent about the color wheel? And what was warm and what was cool? And when you have green and you mix it with yellow, you get a yellow green. So that becomes a warm green. When you mix blue with green, you get a cool green. Everybody got that? And that's something that takes practice too, but you should really refer back to a color wheel. It's a good thing. Okay. All right, techniques. And this I want you to think about when you're looking at the cherry tree, which I did something very quick here, put down for us so I could see it. It's nothing, a picture's worth 1,000 words in this business. Okay, now I took the image of the cherry tree that I sent you, and I did this very quick placement. I call this placement of color or holding colors. I put it down because I knew that I would be using this pink. I knew there would be green over here. I knew there was a fence. There was some kind of a trunk. So this is what you start out with, or something similar to this. Okay, so you draw pardon? No, nobody talked? Okay. So after this, what happens? Okay, there's a lot of decisions to make between this and the next step. Okay. All right. Now, I don't know whether everybody's going to actually, you can make a little sketch for yourself from the cherry tree to make notes on, which is a good idea. I often do that when I'm in a class. I'll sketch what we're going to be painting, just as a little doodle, and I'll make notes and say, oh, should it be this? Should it be that? Should it, what am I going to do over here, over there? So think about that. Okay, the first thing, and I mentioned this in the last class, was salt, kosher salt. Now, what happens? I thought about, when I looked at this, I said, what would happen if that pink was damp and then I sprinkled salt on it? Because when you look at this tree, it's very textured. It has lots of little blossoms that work together like little balls. So that was one idea. So I went back and I looked at, can you see on the table now? Let's see.
No,
Okay, can you see that little tree here?
no, we see you. Oh,
There.
now we see it.
Oh, okay, Michelle had to do that, I guess. Okay, you see this little tree up here? Well, I
Mhm.
put that little tree there and then I put the blue down, you know, just as a color holder. And I sprinkled the salt on, and when it dried, do you see those little blossomy things
Mhm.
that it made? That could be really cool when it's put on the right color, you know, the pink. That's one way to treat those blossoms. Okay, another way, I'm going to turn this around. This is a masking fluid thing. Oh boy, what am I doing here? Okay. I laid down a light pink first. I let it dry. After that was dry, I took a toothbrush, an old toothbrush, and masking fluid, and I flicked the toothbrush, and it made these little kind of splattery dots. That's another way to treat the cherry tree. So after the masking fluid was dry, I took a darker color pink, went over top, and then when that was all dry, I rubbed it off and the light pink came through.
Okay.
Everybody understand that? Should I do it again? No? Okay.
Yes, please. Would you repeat it?
I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
Okay. You know this this tree. Okay, let me do this again. This tree, if I put down the light pink and then I took the toothbrush and I had masking fluid on it, or you could take masking fluid on a pen, or you could take masking fluid on another smaller kind of brush. But I thought the random spontaneous look of the toothbrush dots was really cool. Okay, so first I put down the light pink, then I did the splatter with the masking fluid, let that all dry. Oh, the first pink has to be dry. Then you go in with your masking fluid, let that dry. Then you go in with like a darker pink. You see this darker pink here? Over top, let that all dry. And then with your, where is it? With this rubber cement tape, you know, rubber cement block, you pick up, you take it off, and what you get are these little splatters, these little round splatters. And I'll tell you, there's something about that if you try, you have to try all these things first before you actually go to your final painting, because you know you have to like what you're going for, and you don't know that until you try it. Okay, so that's masking fluid. So we had salt, and we have masking fluid. Now, color pencil, the watercolor pencil. I went in, and if you can see this, you see those little circles?
Yeah.
Little circles there? Well, they represent the little clumps of flowers. Now, if in fact you go in there, and what makes them stand out, or what makes them work together, and believe me, when you're doing a painting that has tons of little flowers and groups of things, you don't want to have to be doing every single one. Now see where I put in some darker pencil? Now you take...
What color is the darker pencil?
That was a darker pink, like a darker pink. Okay, now, and you can try this as we go along. Now I have water on my brush. Where's my brush? Right here. See it? I'm going to just put a little bit of water over that pencil. What happens there is it softens the pencil, and it starts to become, you know, a blossom. And all of this is experimental, and of course you have to like what you're getting. Now I have green, a green pencil. Now you can do this with paint or you can do it with pencil, but you have to try and see what you like. When I looked at a close-up of the tree, I have a close-up. I could do it over here. When I looked at a close-up of the tree, you see the leaves, and this very center of all the flowers has kind of a yellow-green center. So you might mix a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, and you might just put a, whoops, that's a little too wet. That's the other thing, patience. When you're doing watercolor, you know what the most valuable thing is? Patience. Okay, now I put a little bit of yellow green in there on these, but I didn't put any water around it. But what I want to show you is that there are leaves, and what I would start to do is I would start to put in some of these leaves, and they, of course, they can't all be the same. You have to look at your reference. Doris, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, Doris, this is a comment for you because you had the geraniums and the tulips.
Right.
Okay, I wanted to stress to you and to the group that when you're working with cherry blossoms or tulips or geraniums or anything, you have to have good reference to work from. Otherwise, you're guessing. And it's okay to get abstract after you have proper reference, but to start out in an abstract manner and not in a clear manner, it gets farther and farther away from what it should be. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because you have a really nice composition, the greens of your house, the red of the geranium, and also talking about composition. Do you have that
Yes.
drawing with you? Could you just put it up for us for a minute? Michelle, you're gonna have to toggle back.
Can you see it there? Whoops.
Michelle? Michelle.
Oh, it's doing weird things. Can you see it?
Let's see. Where is the one you showed me, the photograph?
Oh, the photograph.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're out. Are you outside?
I need to get to it.
Are you outside?
No, this is a virtual background
Oh.
of my backyard.
Oh, that's beautiful, blooming. Oh.
Yeah. Share content, I guess. Hold on. No, only the host can share.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I want to.
You know, hold on. Let me get it on my phone and I'll just show you on the.
Okay.
Doris, if you keep talking on speaker, you come up large.
Yeah, it's who's ever talking.
Yeah, whoever talking.
Okay, there it is.
Oh,
Okay. If
in
you
the
can get
middle one.
can you get rid of that background behind you?
Yes, hold on.
Let's do that because it's hard to see.
Okay.
Aha. Now bring that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
In the middle. In the
Okay.
middle. Very good.
Now, see
Beautiful.
everybody, my comment there was, I love the colors. Everything is working beautifully together. But you see how lost the tulips, they need to get bigger. They need to interrupt the evergreen. The geraniums need to get bigger. They need to be a better, they need to be more of a focus because the shutters and the house and the evergreens are taking over. So how do we do that? We can just enlarge the garden area, the flower area. And I think it'll really help that too. Also, there are only two tulips. I'm thinking, you know, it's better to have 3 or 5 of something. So my suggestion was to either add another one or add 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Doris. I appreciate that. Okay, we can toggle back to the table. Michelle, we can go back to the table, hon. To Sales iPhone. Michelle? I have to sing. Michelle, my belle. Where are you? Michelle?
I'm here. I'm just having a little trouble finding the, for some reason I can't.
The Sales iPhone?
No, yeah, I know, but there's something, something froze on your phone. I think you probably have to do something to it because it's not allowing me to do anything. Oh, okay.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Ah, okay.
Ah,
Very good. Okay, so getting back to technique. So now I've added a little bit of, you guys can see this, I think. I've added a little bit of green to the leaves and with pencil, and I'm putting some water in here just to see what's happening. Now on the actual photograph, when you see the photograph, you can see that, you know, the tree from far away looks like there's a zillion blossoms. But when you come close, you can see that there's a lot of other things going on. There's some stems that hold the blossoms. So let's just talk about that for a minute. And this you can be making notes on. I'm trying to see if you can do this. Okay, so some of these are going to come off of stems.
we need you a little louder.
Me a little louder?
Good.
Okay, you know what? I was facing the artwork.
Okay.
So right now I'm starting in this area where I've added some stems, I've added some green leaves, but what you have to do is start on one side of your painting and work across, or work on this side for a while, let that dry, go to the
Lower it a little bit. It's off the screen.
Pardon?
You need to lower it. It's off the screen right now.
How's that?
No, the other way. Go the other way, the opposite way. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, now it's upside
Okay.
down with me.
Well, but it's just gotta be on the screen. Otherwise, we don't know what you're
Okay,
saying.
and then if you're painting over here and starting some of this detail, then move over while that's drying, and you move over in here maybe, and then you can move up to the top a little bit, and then you can move. You have to move around your painting so you're allowing things to dry. Okay, because that's what watercolor is. You're definitely a prison. What is it?
Karen,
Yes.
what color did you use for the branches?
For the branches, I used a little bit of green and a little bit of brown together.
Okay.
Okay. And that's something, you know, you experiment with and you see how you like it. Right now, that green is a little bit too bright for me. So I would either go back and just lighten it a little bit, take a paper towel, put water, and see, it went back a little bit. It's a little more subtle now. Now, the other way that you get these blossoms, this is all light now, but if I went back in there with this masking fluid, and if I determined where my blossoms were going to be, and then and you know that the blossoms don't have to be all perfect circles. Can you see what I'm doing? Putting some of this masking fluid in here. The problem with the working with masking fluid, right now as a demo, is it takes time to dry. But that's okay. We're going to keep continuing. And also, if it comes out too regular, like the blossoms look too regular to you, take your finger and just hit them a little bit so that they flatten out. Okay. Now, when that's dry, I would go back in there with a darker pink. And then when that's completely dry, I would rub it off, and those blossoms that are underneath are going to come through light pink. It's really cool. You have to try it. Okay.
Do you remove the masking fluid at the end?
You do. Yes. You remove it because it's just it's kind of a resist. It's just holding your spot. And you can do this on several colors. You can do it like say on the trunk of the tree. Say you wanted to have some, you know, bark lines. So I'm gonna do that right now. So, you know, I do it and then up and down, over here, over there. And it doesn't have to be, you know, real. It's better if it's almost irregular, not regular. And then you know how the trunk will go into the ground a bit. So now you leave that on. And then when that's completely dry, if you don't do it when it's completely dry, what happens is you ruin your brushes. So you don't want to do that. So you wait till it's completely dry. Then you take a darker brown, or maybe you mix a brown with a little bit of blue, and you go over it here and there. And you, when that's completely dry, you remove the masking fluid and you have the brown from underneath and the new brown that's on top as a mixture. And it really looks bark-like. Okay, now let's move on to another technique. Let's see. So we did salt, we did pencil. Now what about the stick? You know, and you know, not every painting that you do is going to need every technique. You have to decide what's the best technique for this particular painting. Now, I would think if I was doing this painting, I would go in there and probably use some of the masking fluid. I would probably use some, I don't know if I would use any plastic wrap. I might use plastic wrap in the, let me show you that while we're on that subject right now. Okay, you see the grass? Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, of course, the grass is not gonna be, you know, even all the way across. So I'm gonna mix, let me mix my, see if I can get this in here a little bit. Ah, there we go. So you can see that a little bit. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, is I'm going to mix up a green. Everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. Now what you do with plastic wrap, you can have a color underneath, or you can start out with white. Now, since I have a color down there, which I think is a good thing, I'm also going to look back at my photograph, and I want you to notice, oh, here it is. You see the shadow under there? There's a big shadow under the tree. Okay, so that's, you're going to take that into consideration when you put down this other green. So here we go. The shadow is like right here. It's coming off of there a little bit. Okay. And maybe there's a little bit that goes on this side. And maybe there's some shadow back here. Okay, now plastic wrap. Okay, just regular saran, and you're going to lay it right on top of the dark green that you put down. And what that does is it breaks up a background. I was working on a painting this week, and the background was seeming to me very boring. Let me go get it. It's on the other side here. We'll let the plastic, oh, you have to let the plastic wrap dry for a couple minutes. So that's why I think this is a good opportunity. And you'll see what happens when you're looking at it. You see how it becomes dark and light under the wrap? That's what you're looking for. You want that to happen. If it doesn't happen, then you didn't have enough paint on or something wasn't right. But this is the painting that I was working on. It's one of these sea pod things. And the background was just very, very bland. And it didn't do anything for me. So I put more paint on, and I put plastic wrap in some areas. And it made it, to me, very interesting. Okay? Okay. Okay, so now let's see if we're ready to lift off the wrap. Now this is, in fact, the same kind of a technique that Joanne used, only she tried foil this time. But I'm curious about foil. I've never done that before. Okay. Okay, now see what happens? It turned that area into something that is It's got some motion. It's got, you know, one of the good things in composition is rhythm. And now if it's a little dark to you or if it's a little heavy, just take a paper towel, lay it on top carefully, and you can blot some of it off. Well, that blotted a lot off, but I still think that that is, and what I want to do is go back in with just water and sort of smooth the edge a little bit. If you do it soon enough, then it's going to blend, which will be nice. And like that word patience, here we go again. It's what you need in watercolor. Okay, now let's see. I think, let me see if these dots up here are dry. Well, they're not great dry, but maybe I can blot them along. I want you to see how that looks with the darker pink on top. Okay, let's see. And go back to your grid. Now I happen to know that my grid contained this kind of a, you know, reddish pink. It wasn't the light pink, but this was the next color up. So I'm going and mixing that together. Now I'm just going to do one area so you guys can see where I put the masking fluid on. And now what happens when you go over it, and you can do it in an irregular fashion, going over the masking fluid, because, and this tree has a lot of color. There was also a little bit of an orangey color in there, so I'm going to add some of that. Keep changing the color in your brush.
Aaron, if we don't have pink,
yeah,
how do we make it?
Well, you can just work with watering down red.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the biggest no-nos for me in watercolor is don't go mixing things with white.
Oh.
Not a good thing.
Why is that?
Okay, now see what's happening there? Now, if this happens to dry before we have to depart, I will take off the masking fluid and you're going to see those little light pink blossoms underneath. It's going to be really cool. All right, now on the tree trunk, I'm going to go over that because those lines are pretty dry. So I'm mixing, in this case, I'm going to mix some brown. One of the, I think this is Van Dyke brown. It's one of my favorite ones because it's got a little red in it. And I'm going to mix a little blue. I'll never forget when I was in art school, I had a painting instructor and we were doing a nude. And, you know, you got along, and he came to each person in the class and he took ultramarine blue. Now, you know how dark that is. And he took burnt umber and he made a color like this. And he went right down the side of my nude. I'm telling you, I almost died. It was, and right on the painting, and never asked me what I thought, if it was okay or whatever, just did it. I was sort of in shock, but I'll tell you, I learned a big lesson from that. And it was to really check my drawing skills because it needed some help. Okay, now I have also next to the palette, you can see here, I have paper towel and I have a testing sheet. So now I'm going to test that brown. And it's nice. It has a little blue in it. It's different from the brown that's in the tree. So watch what happens here. It's a little heavy, so I dabbed it on the. Okay, and we're going to go into the ground here because they do have roots, and you should refer back to. And what you can do is you can start to bring up some of this brown into the tree. You know, here and there. You want to keep it going and you want it to start looking like a tree. Now I happen to know, since this tree is in my yard, that it has a very knobby, funky thing on the side. Okay, now I don't know whether you can see that well or not, but okay, you start to build it out. Now, if that was dry, then I would go back and I'd rub it off, and what you're gonna see is the other brown coming through, and it's gonna make a bark. It's gonna make the bark feel. Okay? Okay, let me go back to our list. So now we've done pencil, we've done masking fluid, we've done salt. Did we put any salt down? No, we didn't. Let's try that. I showed you an example of that, but I want to show you the application of salt in case you want to try it. Again, I'm going to go back to this darker pink that I have mixed up, and I'm just and the thing is, this tree right now, I'm trying all this stuff so I can see how it's actually going to work. Who asked me if they didn't have any pink?
That was Camille.
Camille, can you get yourself some pink, honey?
Well, I may have it because I have a bag of stuff that someone gave me. So
Oh, so yeah, so check it out.
there may
Okay,
be a
all right.
pink in there.
So you put the paint on, you see? Now we're gonna go to the salt. Now, the idea with the salt is if you put it on too soon, it'll just dissolve. So you have to give it a couple of minutes, and you want it, you don't want it to be so regular. You want to just dab it on. But you know what's cool about what's happening here? Maybe this is gonna take on like a whole different feel, because I'm trying all these techniques on one painting. Okay, all right, so it's been on there for a few minutes. You take the kosher salt in your hand, and this is going to be something that you have to experiment with, and you don't want to put it in a big pile. You just want to sprinkle it on. And the other thing, that there's the word patience again. You have to wait for it to dry. Okay, so that's the application of salt. And what'll happen there is you're going to get those little bloomy things. You're going to get those little blossomy things that we looked at over here. Can you see that? See that in the blue, how it looks like almost like snowdrops or snow blossoms? Yeah, that might be really nice. And then you go in the center of each one and you put a little bit of that blue, that little yellow green. It might work out well. Okay, next. What about the scoring? Now, instead of doing the trunk of the tree with the masking fluid, another way to do that would be scoring. And here's an example of that. This one right here. I put blue down, so pretend that that's brown. Then you go in with your stick and you're gonna make like bark-like lines. You wait a couple minutes, then you pick a little bit darker color of the brown and you put it right over top, and look, that's what happens. It becomes really like textured. Okay, so here's the saran, here's the scoring, here's the masking fluid, here's the salt, and here's the watercolor pencil. Okay, now, remember the idea of the scrubber? Did everybody happen to get a scrubber? This is the scrubber. Let me see if I can get it. Ooh, a little too close. See how the end is like, you know, it's like real stiff. Okay, so I'm going to show you what happens. You have to work on a completely dry surface. So now back here where this green is, it's very dry. So I'm going to take a small scrubber, a really little one, like this, and I'm going to wet it. And what you do, I wanted to make this kind of look like grass, or so you just go right over top. You make strokes, and it doesn't look like much right away. You just have to keep at it. And after a while, then you can actually make it long strokes going up into the tree area. Can everybody see that? Yeah. And what right now we can't see much, but you take a paper towel, you go over top, and what it does is it lifts the paint. Can you see that? how it's lifting it up and it becomes kind of strokey. And you have to work at it.
And that's on dry paint?
The dry paint with a wet scrubber. That's why you need to take notes. Dry paint, wet scrubber. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the scrubber. And that you can use, and I find a scrubber is, in fact, let me show you something that I think was really cool done with a scrubber. Hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, see this? What I did here, it was kind of an experiment. I just put down like some red paint. Actually, it was lighter and darker. And then I let everything dry. And then this line and this became a fish. It just reached out to me, and I call this red snappier. And then I added a little bit of metallic gold. But those are things that you can do with a scrubber that can't be done with anything else. So just experiment with that.
And a scrubber is just a stiff brush.
That's right, a stiff brush, but it's made just for this. And they're very inexpensive. They sell them in little 3-packs. Okay, but you will get fantastic results from that. Okay. Now I'm looking to see if anything here is dry enough. Maybe, let's give it a shot. Okay, so you know the little dots that we put on at first? We put the one pink over the other pink. Yeah, you can see that this is working. Yeah. Some of it's working and some of it's too wet. But you'll get the idea. So see what happens to the blossom area? The light pinks are coming through. Everybody?
Yep.
And then you can take a small, which when I look back at the flowers, I look back and I said, oh, they have like a little yellow greenish center. You can go back and now put those in. And before you know it, well, it takes some time, but before you know it, it really starts to become a painting. You see? So when we saw nothing but, you know, watercolor just flat, now we see something where the blossoms are coming. The salt is going to make its own blossoms.
Do you remove the salt or what happens?
No, you just let it dry. You remove it when it's completely dry.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now let's see if I wanted to tell you anything. Oh, a sponge. A regular, this kind of a sponge, you know, like from the sea. That's a really good thing to use as technique. Let me show you that. That's another thing that you might use on this tree. Let me try that. I'll see what I can do with that. You have to mix up some paint. And I think in this case, it's going to be that pinky, that reddish color. And you dab your sponge right into that. Okay, so here's the sponge. It's got the paint on it. Let's see what happens with this one. It's kind of interesting. You know, it's not as controlled for me, but it does make a different kind of texture. It does make a different kind of texture. Okay, that's the sponge. All right, so we did plastic wrap, we did sponge, we did masking fluid. The toothbrush. Now I'm not gonna do the toothbrush here, but I wanna explain to you how to do it. This kind of a tree, you probably see them now. All the blossoms are coming off the tree and they're all over the ground. This is a great tool for that because you load this up with some masking fluid and over this green at the bottom, you can flick that and you're gonna get little spots. and then you paint a little bit of green on top of that, and or you can do it with pink or green, whatever you like. It probably would have been better to do it under the green, because then you would have had the right color. Okay, so that's toothbrush. Let's see.
Karen, how did you do the sky?
The sky, well, I just did that with, just straight paint.
Okay.
But that's a good, let me show you something about skies. Here's a sky.
Mm.
I happen to have this. Let me get rid of this sponge here. You have to be very careful when you're working around a computer with water.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The idea of that just really scares me. Okay, now I'm gonna clean the palette a little bit so I can get some blue in that for the sky. Now this sky that I have on this painting is very beginning. So we have to, oh, you know what? Let me get rid of that brown on there. See how that's looking. So I can show you what happens when you take the masking fluid. Actually, that was very successful.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
How it looks like bark?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has a nice feel to it. Okay, back to the sky. Are we okay with our time, I guess?
A little overtime.
Okay, well, that's okay. I don't mind. I'm working OT today. Okay, the blue. I like cobalt blue. It's a very beautiful blue. Can you guys see that blue? I think so, right? That's a really nice blue.
Off the screen.
Off the screen? Okay, I'll try to come more. Okay, so here, now, I was talking a little bit about what happens when you use a cotton pad. So I'm going to do another area. Just putting down the blue. Okay, now you just want to let that seep into the paper a little bit. And then I have these cotton pads. You can use any kind of cotton. You can use cotton balls, whatever. Okay, so when you want to get a nice wispy sky and really natural looking clouds, you can take the cotton pad and you can just wipe off. And you don't want them to be too. And you can also go back in with a little water and lift some of the color. Okay, now what else can happen here when it's dry? You see how this little bird here in the sky?
Mm-hmm.
That's a wet scrubber in a dry blue, here, I'm gonna do it again. And paper towel. Paper towels are also your best friend in watercolor. So now we have two birds, which is kind of boring. But you see the feeling of the sky? You see what you can do there? And then you can go back in with a little bit darker if you want to. And while it's still wet, the other technique I wanted to show you was when you actually put water down. Okay, now you're going to take another brush with thicker paint, and you're actually going to drop it into, see what happens there. See how that's another way to do your bark on your tree. Put down color and then go back in with thicker paint and you can make it work. This is a cloudy day. These are, what is it? Cumulus nimbus clouds.
Would the saran wrap work on that?
It might, you know what? Let's try it. You know what? Saran actually gives you not so much rounded shapes, but let me just put it on some and we'll see how it works. We have to let that dry. But in closing for this week, what I would like to do is I'd like you to all now that you've seen techniques in action and you know what to do with some of these things, I'd like you to go back and see what technique works with your painting. What works with your painting? And jump right in and start painting. Remember that, Beth, are you there? That's not me.
That's an alarm clock.
Oh, is Beth there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you have your painting of the wind chimes?
Yes.
Can you show that to us, please?
Better sideways. You can see it more.
I don't know. No, just in the middle. Oh, the other way. Turn it around. Up and down. Okay, and then not so close. A little farther back.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's her palette and here's her grid. What I really wanted to show you was if you look over here and then you look over here, do you see the connection? Do you see the connection between the painting and the grid and the palette?
Yeah.
Everybody, that's good. But let me tell you, if you learn one thing from me, and it's to a little bit of color theory goes a long way. And this is very beautiful, Beth. Nice job. Are you happy with it?
Kinda.
Kinda. Okay. Well, you know what? Everybody says that. I say it about. I think I have 1 in 100 that I like of my things. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay. So now, ladies, the charge this week is to. Oh, there you are, Donna. Let me see what you got going. Okay. So here's your palette. Where's your? Oh, there's your photograph. Okay. Let me see your palette and your painting. There it is. There's the connection. Ta-da. Very nice. Anybody else have theirs with them? No?
I didn't know we were supposed to do the whole painting.
No, you didn't. I wanted to show you technique. If these people have been working with me for a while, you can tell they know. But that's okay. Now we're into the next week. I want you to go into this your painting or the cherry tree. That's the charge. And actually, the good thing is to have 2 paintings going at once. Work on your painting while it's wet, go back to the cherry tree. While it's wet, go back and forth. Okay? Does anybody have any questions for me before I leave?
That was wonderful.
I do. This is Lita.
Lita, where are you, Lita?
I'm here.
Okay.
When you look at the tree, there's a lot of light and dark shades.
Yes.
What do you consider? You're using various techniques. Are you relying on the change of color, or like I look at it and I see almost transparency on the flowers. How would you?
Michelle, can you go back to the table? Hi, Lita.
Hi.
No, okay. Michelle, can we go back to the table, big? There we are. What am I relying on? That's a good question. The word relying, you're not so much relying on something as you are depending. And depending on how you treat it and why you treat it. I mean, you can see, let me see if I can get this salt off here. I'll go under the table for a minute so we can take a look at that. Well, not so great. I think it had to dry longer.
You just remove it with your hand?
That's it, very lightly. And once the paint is dry, you can do that. Okay, but you can see, I think the most successful thing was the masking fluid over the pink, over the light pink, putting on the dark pink. And I think that the masking fluid on the tree was very successful. I think that the plastic wrap over the grass was so-so. I would work a little bit more to, get that going. Some of the grass back here, that could come out. That could work. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna work on mine, and I want you to work on yours. And I want you to show me, if you can, you know, maybe a mid-step on everything. Like if you're doing your painting, go halfway. Then if you're working on the cherry tree, go halfway. And let me comment at that point so that, you know, maybe if there's something I might say that
Hey,
could help you
Karen,
along the
this
way.
is Sue.
Oh, okay. I have a question about the fence. Do you
The fence?
just do you just leave it white, or do you mask it out so that it won't get dark?
Well, to tell you the truth, you could have masked that out. I could have done that with the masking fluid and then painted the dark green, because in essence, the dark green on the other side would be showing through the fence. So that's a really good point. Who said that?
Manna.
Ah, okay.
Manna. I don't know what to do about my white bench.
Oh, your bench. Oh,
Yeah.
your bench. Yes, you have to mask that bench.
Okay. At the
Okay,
beginning.
but don't be afraid, and don't worry if it's like perfectly straight or anything. Just get your masking pen. Oh, let's see what we got here.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, who's this? Sue. Okay.
I was practicing my flowers on my photo.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah.
This is the photo.
Let me see.
Ooh, pretty.
Okay. And you know what? I see one thing, Sue, that you're really incorporating. You have captured the character of the flower.
That's what I was practicing on. I tried different ways of doing it,
Yep.
and I think this is my favorite.
Absolutely. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, you're on your way. You gals have really, I mean, the few that have worked with me before and some that know nothing about it are really absorbing, and I'm so happy to see that. Does anybody have any questions for me before I fly?
Why did you say never add white to a color, like she wanted pink? Well, if you have a
Well, what happens when you add white, white is opaque, and it makes your watercolor opaque. And then it gets to be real pasty looking and doesn't appear as a watercolor anymore. It almost takes on the look of gouache, which is like an opaque watercolor, or a tempera color. And you really don't want that. You want the beauty of watercolor. And one of the things I always say to my students is, let the white, and you can see in the tree that I had there, I left little sparkles of white in the tree, because that's what makes a watercolor a watercolor. You don't want to cover the whole page. You want some of that sparkle. Like Donna, where's your tree, honey? Where's your tree? There it is. See, it's got that little sparkle. It's got blue showing through. There it is. See the little sparkle?
I didn't take off the masking fluid yet. That's the
Yeah,
blue. So it should be white through there when.
Okay, that has a wonderful character. Beautiful. Yay. What is this little red thing?
And this red thing is it is from my front door, where it's no solicitation. And so that's my sticker from the town.
You know what? That is you. That is your character coming right through. I think you should try to let her in there.
Yeah.
Just one big no. Just a big no.
Right.
A big no. Oh, who was talking to me before that? I was with Sue. Anybody?
I was asking about the white.
The white. Oh, the white. Not to mix. Yeah, not to mix white paint. I'll tell you, there are very few instances where if a painting is all done and I see something, oh my gosh, that should have been white, I go back in on top of everything, and I will use a watercolor white to make that, and it's usually opaque, but that's very rare. I can show you a duck that I did that with. Let me get him. Do you know what a Mandarin duck is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're fabulous. Okay, here he is. And I don't do too many animals, but there was something so intriguing about this. And you see this white piece right here, all the way down? and then there was a little white edge on there. There were little whites that weren't white enough for me. I left white paper like around around his eye. I left it white. The end of his beak I masked off with masking fluid. This was masking fluid, and then I painted dark purple over top. Went back and put that orange in after. So that's when white is okay. But
How did you do the
normally stay away from white. Kate, how are you doing? Do you have anything you've been doing? Let me see. Oh, the lily ponds. Yes. Ah, unmute yourself, hon, so we can hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
Am I?
There you go.
Okay. This is the original.
Right.
And this is what I've been working on as we've been talking today.
Beautiful.
And here's my this thing.
Your palette, yes.
Palette. And if you look, I haven't started to use the blue greens yet.
Mm-hmm. This has a very soft feel. Is there anything from today's discussion that you can take to what your work there?
Well, I've been listening the whole time.
Okay.
I think that yeah, I think setting up the palette to begin with and looking at how the colors go together.
Okay.
To me, because when I look at the original and it has, you know, it has these really strange colors. It has this like red, but it's also yellow green, and having the palette helps me work out how to do that.
Now, was that was a photograph that he took?
That was a photograph from Nature Conservancy calendar from February.
Yeah, see, now when you go to put your blue in, you see these little reflections of white that are like, you know, sort of soft. That may be something that you think about the cotton feel to get that soft edge. You might think about that.
Like up here on the...
yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea. I also
Nice.
thought I would use rubber to put in some of these very faint stems after I put on the green.
That's quite beautiful. Good luck. I hope I know you said you tried it before and you didn't really like it, so let's see.
Yeah, this is my third try on this one.
And you know what? I have a pile of those. But that's how you get there. That's how you get there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
you won't start with the background on that? You started with the main?
Yeah, the first time I did this, I tried using masking fluid to make the stems and then background over the whole thing. I didn't like how that turned out because the masking fluid is not as delicate.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to mix up a lot of the blue-green and then just carefully go in between all these stems.
You see one of these jars? When you mix up your paint, when you say a lot, you need a lot. So make sure you have enough. There you go. Okay, is everybody clear? Just to recap, so we talked about the color wheel, we talked about paintings, and decide if any of these techniques will be workable in your work, workable and appropriate in your work. From what I see, I think, Cheryl, did you show us anything today? Let's see.
No.
Okay, you're not there yet, but that's okay.
I just have sketches for I haven't actually painted anything yet. I've just done sketches.
Okay, well
I tend to do, what I'm trying to do is to lighten up my hand and have it a more watercolory look, because I tend to get to be too representational. And after a while, it looks less like a watercolor and more like an oil.
That's right. That's right. And you know, someone said to me long ago, because I always drew too much, I overdrew. When I was sketching, I overdrew.
That's my problem.
One of my instructors said to me, and I'm going to say it to you, Karen, learn to draw with the brush. Learn to draw with the brush. And guess what?
Working on it.
I have. Oh, you can see most of my work now has a very watercolor feel. It doesn't have an over-rendered feel. So that's what I'm saying to you, Cheryl. Yep. Good. Okay, ladies, it was my pleasure. I hope you learned a lot, and questions during the week, and we'll go from there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bravo, bye-bye.
Karen, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.